12:15. I want to welcome each of you to today's webinar where we'll move quickly. We're going to talk about Windows 10 and some really key information, and we're going to talk about cloud file sharing and cover some things we've learned that hopefully will be of benefit to everyone. Our goal today is to educate and inform. So no product sales are attempted. In fact, no product sales are offered from today's webinar. We simply want to share what we've learned. I want to say a special thank you to so many of you. Some of you are encountering PBSI for the first time today. Many of you have been partners of PBSI's for many, many years, and your long-standing business and our relationships are very much appreciated. Hope you know that. Okay, my name is Ray Cool. I'm president of PBSI. Our very short agenda is we're going to talk about how to set up Windows 10 to avoid hassle, confusion, and learning curve. We're going to talk about cloud document sharing. What are the benefits? What are the risks? Who should be thinking about it? When should you be moving your files there? And then a very short topic, but one of real use, I believe, is if you've ever upgraded your Microsoft Office to a new PC or to a new version and you had to redo all of your settings, some really simple things will help you, and we'll pass those on. And there will be documentation sent to each of you as attendees for you don't have to remember the things that are covered today. So thanks for your attendance. So for many of you who've known PBSI for decades or years, not much can be said. You know who you have. We care about customer support. We care about service. A lot of good people. 27 of our staff have been with us for 10 years or more. I'm very thankful as president of the company to be able to say we have a fantastic team of staff. Those of you who have not experienced PBSI, our basic business is technology services in healthcare and in business. And we've been doing this for a long time, and we continue to learn something that's very important. So PBSI is here for general technology service, not just software support. So let's talking about Windows 10. The principles behind what we're trying to accomplish are Windows 10, like Windows 8, if any of you had any experience, could be really difficult, disconcerting, and hard to get used to. So we want to talk about visual setup to make it simple. File access, what are some new features that are really important that you can really benefit from in Windows 10 if they're set correctly. Talk about the settings app. So how do you go about setting a new PC so that it conforms to expectations? And by expectations, I'm largely thinking of Windows 7 users who are going to be in a new environment, and you don't want it to look new. You don't want it to be disconcerting and taking up employees' time learning. We're going to talk about some securing features that are there with Windows 10 and a bit about browser setup. So one thing I do want to say as a caveat, this webinar is not intended to recommend Windows 10 and you should be doing this. And in fact, the caveat is there are some compatibility issues that we've identified. Now, frankly, most of them are minor. So I'm just going to mention a couple. If you are a physician using Dragon Medical prior to Practice Edition 2, then I'd recommend you don't upgrade your PC without talking to PBSI first. Those of you who have Visual Cut or LabelView Gold, those are programs that we know how to handle some setup issues that can save you some time. Generally speaking, however, most of the software on your PC will come to Windows 10 just fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into some detail, and what you see on your screen, in fact, is a setup document that you will receive copies of. So I'm going to talk about not all of these, and I'm going to demonstrate not all of these, but I want to just make a couple of really key points. So we want to choose secure, we want to choose clean, we want to choose fast versus fun. So this is some personal opinion coming in here. And you'll see exactly what I mean when I come to the Start menu. And we want consistent and supportable. So these are those principles that we're trying to get to. The recommendations we're making about setup are not universal. People have preferences, and those preferences make the world go round. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the setup of the menus. So the first thing you encounter when you go to Windows 10, lower left-hand corner, I'm running Windows 10 on my PC. I'm going to click on the Start button. This is your new menu. So many of you have Windows 10, this may look familiar, but some things that have happened here is I have some holes in my menu, and this is not visually necessarily all that attractive. So we can do things to change the size of things on our menu, place them in different places, And you make your own choices here, but making this organized is one key part of this. So there are a couple of choices related to your menu, and we'll talk about these in detail, but what you want is you want the menu to take part of your screen, not all of it. If you were a Windows 8 user originally, this menu would have covered your entire screen, and you'd have said, I don't even know how to find anything that I'm used to finding. So on this Start menu, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn Live Tile off for menu boxes. So what does that mean? Live Tile comes out of the box where some things like weather, when I right-click on that icon, each of these items on my Start menu is an icon, and I can choose to turn Live Tile on or off. So if I turn Live Tile on for a couple of these, you'll see in not too long that they'll start to move. And when they move, it means there's behind-the-scenes updates going on with Live Tile on, and it's unnecessary movement going on. So I'm going to choose productivity, and I'm going to turn that off so that Live Tile doesn't continue to update. So this is made choice by choice, but if you ever installed Windows 10 afresh, you'll see there's movement all over your menu, and you're thinking, what's going on? Well, that's the productivity issue. Turn Live Tile off. Recommend that you carefully consider which items you want on your Start menu. So there's no universal here. In my case, the business apps that I use all the time, I set on the left-hand side, and the system, technical, like the Settings app, I put on the right-hand side. So if I want to add something to my menu, I'm going to do that now just as a demonstration because I typically have it set this way. You can choose All Applications. I want to go down to Windows Explorer, and I want to add whatever application. Maybe I want to add sticky notes, or I want to add control panels. So these are things that I can choose from among the Microsoft apps that I want to put on my, so if I say pin to start, move it here, you have added something to your Start menu. So you right-click and say remove it, or you right-click on another application and you say add it. So you can change your own Start menu and rearrange it to your heart's content until you have the applications that you typically want there in the place you want them when this comes up. So customizing your Start menu is the first step, and by doing that early on, you'll save yourself having to fool around with where do I find things. All right, there are items in this list that I'm not going to talk about, but this idea of pin to the Start menu is one. So I want to choose which items are on my Start menu. Then there's another place where I can launch applications that's really useful, and that's my taskbar. So the taskbar concept has been familiar for many revisions of Windows, and my taskbar is down here on the bottom of the screen. Pinning something to my taskbar means it's going to appear here on the left-hand side. There are very few things that I pin to my taskbar other than applications I have running. So among those, we're recommending File Explorer, the browser of your choice, a snipping tool. Those are useful apps. Snipping tool allows you to take a screenshot, so I can take a picture of just this portion of the screen. It's a part of Windows 10 that's really well designed. And then the things that you use all the time. If you start your day by opening up Outlook or Gmail or whatever, if you start your day by using OneNote like I do, I'll put it on my taskbar so that OneNote comes up on my screen and my to-do list is here, and I can modify my to-do list as I have conversations throughout the day. So the to-do list, and so I keep OneNote running regularly, and no matter what device I'm using, it updates back and forth. So I'm not trying to sell OneNote. In fact, it's a pre-app that comes with Office. But you'll see I have Outlook and OneNote. And then I have just a couple other things. I have File Explorer. I'll come back to File Explorer. It's a really important topic in my Start menu. Beyond that, I have browsers that I use. So I use Chrome and I use Edge, and so I have those browsers available on my taskbar. So these are choices, but you don't want it to be too cluttered. You just want those things that are available for productivity. So taskbar, some other things. Setting up your taskbar, there is a properties. I right-clicked on my taskbar and I clicked on properties. Recommend that you make use of small taskbar buttons, which simply means that you can fit more things down here. And you do not auto-hide it. That's important. And that there's a setting here to combine when full. That's the most useful way to do this, because if I had 15 Outlook emails open, they would consolidate down to saying Outlook instead of having 15 buttons if they're combined. So other things, they're all preference related. So I'm going to move on to File Explorer, another really key part of Windows that has changed in Windows 10. My first personal exposure to the new File Explorer was really disappointing because they took away a feature that I used a lot in Windows 7, and that is favorites. So I'm now going to talk about using File Explorer. The first recommendation here is, this is not really about Windows 10, but I would recommend using File Explorer to open all files. Don't open things from Word or from Visio or from Excel. Instead, open your files from File Explorer. Reason is, once you go to an area where you want to look, if I look in a certain area on our files, if I do a search for a file and I want to find something that has this file content in the name, it looks in all the subfolders as well. So it's just an easier way to make sure I don't have hidden files down beneath. So setting up this Windows Explorer, there are some things that will really help, I believe, with productivity. So I'm going back and forth between the setup document just to reference where we are. I want to identify that the View tab will help make File Explorer a lot more useful. So when I come here to File Explorer, there's a View tab. First thing I want to suggest is you set this to details, which means that the content will be file name, date, modified type, file extension. So these are the file extensions that I would recommend. There's a button here called Size All Columns to Fit, and that remembers that for this particular folder. So this is a useful thing to make sure that you set to details, and it's very different than the icon view, but highly recommend you consider using that. Okay, so once we have this set, another thing we're going to talk about is quick access. So where did favorites go? So if we were in Windows 10, I would have something called favorites here, and the folders that I normally see would be underneath it. That's gone in Windows 10. It's replaced by quick access. So you can copy your favorites from Windows 7, but you can't rename them. So in PBSI's case, I'm going to use links. I set up a folder called links, and the instructions describe how to do this. And in those are what used to be my favorites. So in our case, we have on our network, under our medical division structure, we have a folder called customer files, and we have one in commercial called customer files. So I can't just have a folder called customer files, or it's confusing to me, so I want to rename it. You cannot do that in quick access unless you set up links. So this is very simple. Among all of the various hundreds of folders that I might go to, these are the ones I go to most frequently on our network. If I want to set up a link to a new place, I'm simply going to come here and say new, shortcut. I'll browse on our network to get to the place where I want to select another folder. And so if I wanted to set up a link to this folder, I set it up. I can call it anything I want to. I'm going to remove that actually when I'm finished, and now it's a part of my folder structure, so I'm going to remove it. It's very simple to create, and if you follow the instructions, you can save yourself time. What I really hate is having to go down a folder structure to find files, and every time I search, I go down that folder structure, and I drill down lower, and I drill down lower, and I drill down lower, and so forth until I find the place I want. Setting up these links avoids that process, really simplifies. So I like to keep my menu on the left short. So these are recommendations that really impact productivity. If in the organization everyone does this, if you do any file sharing, it's really, really useful. And this applies just as well to cloud sharing. So quick access, set File Explorer to default to quick access instead of this PC, and then have your default folder saved underneath there. So I'm going to skip the way you create these. There are 3 different methods to create those favorites, and you can choose your own method. I'm going to move on to the new Settings app. One of the things that's brand new in Windows 10 is the Settings app, which can be accessed in a couple of ways. You can put it on your Start menu like this, and here is the new Settings app. So the thing about this is you need to completely relearn a new way of setting everything on your PC. So Control File is still there. You can still use Control File. But the Settings app is the eventual replacement for Control Files. So we're going to discuss just some of the key settings inside of this Settings app. So the places to start are understanding that there are sections: Accounts, Personalization, System, and there is Personalization, Network, Devices, System. These are the names. Update Security, that's one section. Privacy, that's one. So the section names we've listed individually. I haven't taken these necessarily exactly in order for a good reason. If I'm setting up a new PC, I want to start with Accounts. I want to set up my account. You can put a picture on there or not. When you log into your PC, your picture will display. It can be a picture of your wife if you prefer, or your spouse if you prefer. Pardon me for being off politically correct there for a moment. So if you're on a tablet PC, like a Microsoft Surface, there's a setting to allow you to take a camera picture of yourself, and it will log in actually with your face. It's a great option. I use it on my Microsoft Surface. It works great, avoids any login whatsoever other than pointing the camera at my face. And then there's another sign-in option where you can have a short sign-in. So I'll just talk about this really quickly. I'm going to go to the Settings app on my PC, and the Accounts. So here's the picture that I took that I have set as my default picture. That's what I'm faced with when I log into my PC every day. So that's why you might want to choose a sunset picture instead. It knows which accounts I'm associated with. So I set this up initially. I tell it what my sign-in options are, and it says in some case they're managed by our organization. And if you're a PBSI client, sometimes we manage these central settings for you. I decide when I want to require sign-in. So for security purposes, most of us, we want this to say require sign-in, which simply means prompt me for my password when I log in. So what's my password? That's my normal PC password that I use in Windows. The new thing in Windows 10 is you can use a PIN number, and the PIN number can be either organizational information or personal information. It can be different PIN numbers. I've read an article that said a 4-digit PIN number is actually more secure than a longer password because you can only use these PIN numbers if you're local. I have to be sitting at this desk in order to log in. So I can either log in with my picture if I have a camera, or I can log in with a 4-digit PIN instead of whatever length of password I have to log into Windows. So these are some settings that can save you time by using them. So personalization is a good place to start. One of the things on the Start menu, by the way, under personalization, is I'd recommend turning the Start menu options off. So I'll display that here in a second. So under personalization, we're going to go to our settings, and personalization shows me I can set backgrounds. One of the things that I'd recommend is that you use a theme and set a slideshow. This is very personal. It's totally unnecessary. It's not a business-related thing, because Microsoft offers some really wonderful screensavers. And on the very lower right-hand corner of my menu, this little button on the very lower right-hand corner, if I click it, shows my desktop. So I have a theme that came straight from Microsoft, and if I want to display the next background and the next background and so forth, it will do this automatically every minute if I have a theme set up. So you don't need to buy a screensaver or download a screensaver, which are very unsecure in general. Recommendation here is use a theme, but download it from Microsoft. You will do that here on your personalization screen under themes. You can look at theme settings. You can say go and find themes from Microsoft. So I'm not recommending how you have your visual setup. I'm simply saying that there's a convenient, interesting, and very secure way to do that. So underneath personalization, in addition to that, you can set a couple of important things. So what do you want your background to be, what colors, and you can choose a background color. When I change that, it changes my menu bar and my task bar, so it's really easy to change. And a couple of things. So on the Start button, one more thing I'd say is if you have more buttons than will fit, you can turn this on, which will make your Start button a little smaller or a little bigger. If you see what happens when I click this button, my Start button would change in size. And then generally I have all of this off. The most important one here, this is what I'm mentioning very specifically, is use Start Full Screen, have that set to off. If you turn it on, then it becomes like the old Windows 8 where your entire screen is taken up. So generally speaking, that's a confuser for most people. So I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so recommendations, system. There are specific recommendations. Any of you who have tablet PCs or Microsoft Surface or any other portable unit, there are some settings that show up that only show up if you're using a portable unit. And we have a document for this that asks us, and we'll send this to you. But generally speaking, you don't want to use tablet mode. This is what was attempted with Windows 8, and you really don't want it. So there are some power settings that are important too, but those are preferential and generally only relevant for portable units. So the applications of accounts, personalization, system, devices, Bluetooth, unless you need to use Bluetooth, set it off, it'll take system resources and battery power. And if you're using a portable unit, there's a setting here for the touchpad. We recommend long delay. That's what Microsoft recommends. And it actually makes a big difference so that it's not too sensitive. So these are little things. Wi-Fi, I'm not going to mention this other than to say if you're using a portable device, there's another setting that says, do you want Wi-Fi to stay on while sleeping? And the answer is yes, you do, because otherwise you have hassles and you have to re-log in. So simple things, but important. Okay, so not a lot of other time in settings. We will be done by 1 o'clock, so I won't be detailed about many of these things. Privacy, recommend turning background apps off, and the same thing with security. So I'm going to go there quickly just so you can see what I mean by privacy. You can change, Microsoft sets this on by default. Do I want to let my advertising ID be used? I generally say no. I really don't want that. I don't want any of this stuff. I'll let Microsoft learn how I write on a screen to improve typing, but other than that, I really want to set this stuff off. And that includes showing my location, except for the camera apps. And so here's where background apps is on this menu. And we can choose, why is that on? Sometimes a Microsoft Update turns these on, but for all the applications installed on my PC, I have this turned off. I don't need it updating in the background. I'll let it update when I go and check the weather instead. Okay, so securing your PC, one of the most important things, as has always been true, it remains true, there is no free antivirus that comes with Windows 10. Make sure you install antivirus. If you're a PBSI client, most of you have PBSI's online antivirus and security monitoring going on very inexpensively. If you don't have that, ask us about it. It's a fantastic value, but also we watch your PCs and your servers from afar and identify issues. So just make sure you have antivirus installed. If you buy a new PC, you can call PBSI. No charge. We'll transfer the license from old to new. It's very simple to do. You just don't want to have a PC that doesn't have antivirus. And then there are security settings, which I won't go into, but talk to us if you have any questions about how these should be set. So, I'm going to skip doing much with the browser, but the browser is actually another thing that's really important. As you might expect, when Microsoft installs a new operating system, they default your browser to Bing, and they default your search program to Bing, and I prefer Google. So mine comes up with Google, not because it did so automatically, but because I chose settings and made these settings choices, which we describe here in browser setups and defaults. So a word about browsers. Chrome is a good browser. Internet Explorer is harder to find on Windows 10, but it remains an effective browser in its current form. Microsoft's new browser, Edge, this is new with Windows 10, is a fine browser, and its one benefit is that it's much more secure. It simply doesn't permit some things. One of the things it doesn't permit is also its Achilles heel, and that's Flash. So if you go to a website that uses Flash, then you simply won't be able to see that Flash from Edge. So all in all, it's a better browser, but there are some places where you may need to use a different browser. So in my case, instead of having one browser, I have two browsers down here. I'll choose which one I want to use based on what I'm doing. Generally, I use Chrome, but that's certainly a personal preference. Okay, so there are settings here, and there are many others. These are simply the ones that we feel like are probably most useful. So with that, Our goal is to help you avoid some setup things that really make a difference, some issues. So I'm going to move on to next topic. So cloud file sharing. Main reasons you might want to use this: access to files from multiple locations. You have multiple offices, you work from home, you are out of the office, you're in a coffee shop, wherever. You use documents from multiple devices, your work PC, your laptop, your iPhone, your iPad. You have critical need for availability to documents, so the quote server being down is just not an acceptable thing. You need to ensure regular backup, and on your PC, you're not necessarily backing up regularly. You know that's a risk, and you'd rather avoid that and make sure somebody else is responsible to make sure you have backup copies. You have reliability issues. These are all reasons why you might want to choose cloud storage, where you're uncertain if you might lose a hard drive on the server in your office, and you're wondering if it's getting too old to be reliable, and so put it in the cloud where reliability will not be an issue. And you may want to avoid the next server upgrade. So if you're putting files on an internal server now, which is a perfectly fine thing to do, and there's no reason to change this, but if you're thinking, the only reason I really need this server anymore is because I store all of my files there, then it's a really good reason to choose an alternative. So there are lots of reasons to do it. Personally, what I have found valuable is I work from home, I'm on a laptop, I'm in the office, I'm on my iPad sometimes, and the same files are available from all of those places with not a second thought. So we have a document that we've put together we're going to share with you, which includes selection of vendors, but this document I want to display that simply says there are lots of resources now for secure and free file sharing. At one point in time, I, like many others of you possibly, were very concerned that security and performance, and there were all kinds of risks, and I just don't want to deal with it. It seems like it's not secure. Frankly, all the research that we have done here and that I've been involved in personally makes me feel pretty much not true. Those concerns have gone away in my mind. I'm on the path of feeling like files should be in the cloud unless you have just a large number of, there are reasons not to do it. For example, at PBSI, we have probably 30,000 documents in our file library, and it would work fine on the cloud, but there's no compelling reason to do it. So we won't move all of our files, but in a different organization, I would willingly recommend that be done. So the vendors, Microsoft OneDrive, Google Drive, those are clearly the two big boys in the market. Apple has iCloud, there's Dropbox long-term participant, another company called Box. With Amazon Prime, you now have some free cloud space. Adobe does the same thing if you have an Adobe account. So you have so many choices, and most all of these, the majority of what they do is for free. It's a matter of saying, okay, I need to pick one and use it. So the bottom line recommendation, we've done a lot of research here, is if you're a Microsoft shop, meaning you don't really use Google for much, you're not a Gmail user as an organization and so forth, use Microsoft. If not, use Google. They're free, they're good. There's one particularly important caveat. So when considering cloud host choices, there are two security things to consider. One is data encryption in transit. One is data encryption at rest. So in transit means when I'm downloading a file, uploading a file, is that data automatically encrypted with all the major vendors? The answer is yes. So there is no security issue. A VPN is created just at the point of transfer. And so you can transfer files up and down with no risk, and that includes files with protected health information, and includes files with Social Security number. It's encrypted in transit. At rest, Google Drive is always encrypted at rest. Microsoft OneDrive for business, data is encrypted at rest. OneDrive not for business, the one that comes free with Office 365 basic version, does not encrypt data at rest. So if you're a healthcare provider or you're using it for protected information, I wouldn't recommend OneDrive. I'd recommend OneDrive for Business, which means a monthly fee, or you're using Microsoft Office 365. We'll come back to that. So all of these choices are fine. They work well, and I'm going to do a little bit of demonstrating. I just want to clarify that the encryption difference among them. So the way these all basically work is we set up a file folder structure. So I'm going to do demonstration of two of these. So I have Google Drive set up, and under my Google Drive, I have a customer's area where I've been invited to share, and I'm not going to click on these, and another customer's area where I've been invited to share, and an area where we don't actually have any documents out there, but one that I created. And I can invite people to this area. If I wanted to put some documents there, I can simply take them from another location. So I'll copy this file and paste it to our shared document area, and now I have placed that document on the cloud, and anybody I've shared that Google Drive subfolder with has access to it. So I can share by simply right-clicking, say share with, and give it a list of people, and they get an email that says you've been invited by Ray Cool to share this folder, and I can give specific permissions and so forth. This is pretty much true with all of these applications. It works pretty much the same way. And so you learn you can share with specific people. So if we have a folder structure like I do on OneDrive, now moving the same concept, but now I'm going to talk about the Microsoft variant. I have a folder that pretty much I use for test purposes, but I wanted to set one up that I made from my home PC, one from my Microsoft Surface, and one from my desktop. This was really only done to make sure for my own benefit that when I, on any of these devices, I see the same things, and I do. So if I make a change to a file in this area from my desktop, I see it from home and vice versa. But the point here that I really want to make is if you have subfolders, you can share just certain subfolders. So I have shared this subfolder, and I'm going to look at this solution subfolder, and if I go to sharing, you'll see there's a list of people who have been shared, and they can get to anything in this area. They can use it. They can do anything with it. I can make more specific permissions by right-clicking and choosing different permissions. But if I look at a different folder and I look at sharing, nobody else has been invited. If I look at a folder above the one that I shared, nobody else has been invited. So I picked just a certain folder out of a list, and I could have said invite including all the subfolders. So that's pretty much the way it works. Once you have the folder set up, move your files there, you share, and then there are variations on that theme. If you're using OneDrive for Business, then there's more security involved. Then you can have multiple people involved in editing documents at the same time, and it will not prevent one or the other. It will actually merge the documents. So there are some benefits to OneDrive for Business, but the basic principle there is set up a folder structure and share people to it. So I find it really useful when I can go to Google Drive and be involved with different customers and environments with one click. So this is basically a sharing idea whose time has come, and the synchronization is automatic. And I want to say, try this with people where you want to share information. It works really well. So there are a couple of links in the document you'll get where there have been some more in-depth specific comparisons. These are a couple of the better ones. I'm not going to click here, where you'll be able to see where in-depth analysis was done that we've tried to summarize up above, simply saying that there are lots of vendors. The recommendation is choose one that's most convenient and use that one, because these aren't in the category of some of these are good and some of these are not good. Okay, so cloud file sharing, setup is key and education is key. So we have a couple of documents that we will make available to anybody who asks how to set up folders and folder structures, a document that identifies what are some good guidelines to give with staff, things like don't set up too many subfolders, no documents on C drives, things that can really help in making this a practical thing, because with many of us, it's not the technology. We know how to set up the folders. It's the compliance of behavior that is the issue. So we have some documentation that helps with that. So we're not charging for any of this simply because I feel like our role, we provide services, technology services to clients, and we want to help you succeed and avoid issues, and we want to share our learning. So consider that a thank you for using us in other areas. We continue, and we will continue to do this, research on other topics, more topics. So my last item of conversation today is Microsoft Office. So I admit I'm maybe a Microsoft Office geek compared to some. But I have found some things that have really been aggravating to me. One, I get a new PC, and all of a sudden my dictionary with all of client names and odd-spelled first names and oddly spelled last names, they're no longer there. I have to add them all over again. The spell checker doesn't find my old dictionary. So this is something we're happy to help you with at PBSI. Admittedly, there are some confusions about this, and I'll just tell you in advance, if you don't have hidden files and folders set correctly, the instructions here are not terribly easy to use. But the bottom line is it's very easy to do. So you could say to PBSI, hey, there's a dictionary on this PC. Make sure it's on the new PC, or this is something that we're building into our process when we upgrade a customer's PC as a routine matter of course. So there's a file on everybody's who uses Microsoft Office called custom.dic. That's the name of the file. We all have that file. If we've ever added anything like spelling ERH or EHR and it turns into ERH, kind of thing, you have to add it into your dictionary before it will allow you to type EHR successfully. So by copying from the old and putting in the new, you've immediately inherited your dictionary. So just a small thing, but saves hours and hours of redo work. Okay, another thing, ribbon line. So many people don't use this, and I do. So I'm going to change my view of Microsoft Office. The ribbon line, you may know, is this thing where you can say, quick access toolbar. If I use the right term, that would really help people. So quick access toolbar, you can show it above or below, and you can, it's basically almost empty when it comes. So I use this quick access toolbar for things like saving and format painter, and mostly for formatting things. When I'm on the Home tab, those things are all available to me. But if I'm on a different tab in Microsoft Office, I want my formatting command still to be here, so I don't have to go back to another tab. So just little things, some of which aren't. If you use Excel, there are links and a few things that you just don't want to have to go back and click on 3 different things in order to get what you're looking for. So how you do this is you can customize your ribbon, and there's a little thing down here called import export, and we have done this at PBSI where we have a standard folder where we have exported. So if I want to import a customization file, guess what? We've stored this on the cloud, and we have the Word customization file, and just like that, it replaces whatever my ribbon line was with what's been saved out there. So you can have a ribbon line, and so now all of your employees can all be Microsoft Office geeks. You can choose how these things are set for productivity. So you can both make changes in export, you can make changes in import. So retaining your ribbon line setup, this works with all different Microsoft applications, and it's across versions too. You can save in 2010 and import in 2016 or vice versa. So useful thing. So finally, saving a file name and path in a Microsoft document has long-standing been an issue. One reason why I preferred WordPerfect for a long time, this was an automatic process. Well, in Microsoft Office, design, footer, edit, I'm not going to do this, but design, footer, edit, quick parts, choose the field, and your path and file name get stored in your document footer. So if this has been a mystery to you like it was to me for a long time, hopefully no longer a mystery. So you'll each get these documents sent to you as a result of today's webinar. So without demonstration, one other thing, we've done a lot of research on Microsoft Office versions. So Office 2016 is the most current version of desktop apps, and Office 365 is the same. Office 365 is basically the rental version. You pay a monthly fee, and you can pay from $5 a month to $12.50 a month, and there are reasons to use one version or another, but basically the issue here is it is a financial decision, not a product decision. So as long as you're not using the online app, you want to use the desktop app, which are available with either of these, you're either paying $220 roughly up front for Microsoft Office, or you're paying net, let's call it $8 a month on average for Microsoft Office. Now with 365, you get automatic upgrades to the next revision, where if you buy a single version, that's the version you have forevermore. But they tend to keep these back compatible for several years, so Office 365 makes sense for organizations where you don't have any existing or you have few existing copies of Office or you need to replace all of your Office, then consider the monthly version. But the payback on this is generally less than 3 years. You buy the purchase price app and you will have saved money versus 365. So we sell 365, we support it, it's a fine app. There are some problems with it, but it's basically the same. It's a decision monthly or purchase. Okay, so is it time for Windows 10? I should have said this up front. This is not a recommendation to use Windows 10. I like Windows 10, I recommend it, I use it, I wouldn't go back, but I've spent a lot of time with it. But I'm not saying you should do it, that you'll find it better, that everybody will say, oh, this is great, I have Windows 10. No, that really won't be the case. But the thing to consider here is that Microsoft released this 1 year ago on July 29th, and they said it'll be free for a year for all users of Windows 7 and Windows 8 in its variations. And they are holding to that course, meaning you all, if you have Windows 7, you're getting these relentless prompts. Do you want to upgrade? Do you want to upgrade? And unless you've said yes, you keep getting those. You'll continue to get those, but on July 30th, presumably, nothing has been indicated from Microsoft that this will change. So you get Windows 10 for free up to July 29th, and then you'll pay, presumably, full price, which has historically been over $100 for a copy of Windows. Who knows how that may change. But if I'm you in your organization and knowing that Windows 10 is legitimately fine to use, even good, I'd probably lay a plan to be upgrading sometime between now and June. So this is something where there's a ticking clock, and that may be the biggest reason why you should do this. If you want PBSI involved, we're happy to do your upgrades for you, to be involved on site, to be involved online. Just tell us how you want us to help, and we're happy. But basically, the preparation information here is be consistent, have some guidelines. If you let every employee do this for themselves, you will have some productivity issues, and you will have somebody saying, I hate this thing, and somebody saying, well, you just don't know how to, and they're trading information back and forth. So prepare in advance, and we're happy to assist. Cloud sharing, I want to say if what you're doing now works fine, and if you don't have documents on C drives, it doesn't really matter if you centralize it on the cloud or not, but if you are going to make a change, I probably would change to centralizing the cloud instead of a server in Office, because the security issues and the availability issues have been, by and large, addressed. Again, plan in advance and make sure your employees are all on board with how these folders are going to work, how they're named. This is something we've done with just dozens of organizations. We have templates for what a folder structure might look like for a medical office, templates for what a folder might look like for a business or a law firm. So these templates aren't universal, but they identify differences between departmental groups and policies and procedures and forms and areas where they just make sense, common sense, help you think through things in advance, and ask us and we'll provide these for free. Should we upgrade our Office? Frankly, back to 2010 at least, Microsoft Office is fine from my perspective, other than they do get placed out of service. I don't think there's anything compelling in the new versions of Office that make me say you should buy a new version compared to your old version. So when you do it, the new versions are good, and nothing wrong with them, only enhancements, not drawbacks. But when you do take the step, take those steps to simplify and not have to redo your work. So we're finished with content. I want to thank each of you, not only for your attendance, but for your long-term, in many cases, long-term participation as a partner with PBSI. You will get an email in follow-up to your log-off, and there will be short questions. We don't want to hear attaboys. What we want to know is what kind of follow-up you would like. So no follow-up is fine. We will send to each of you documents that have been discussed in today's webinar, and you're free to use those, and you're free to share those within your organizations. And if you'd like help with either setup or security monitoring or IT services, dial tone, phone systems, there are a range of things we do really well. Happy to talk about them. So today, we are finished. I very much appreciate your attendance. And I want to say you're welcome to log off and hope you have a great day.